We go to Bill O'Reilly now, who I know wants to lead with an apology because he said last week that he didn't think the Bob Woodward book would sell, and now that it's the biggest selling book of all time, including I think the Bible. I'm sure he's going to lead with that. Hello, Bill.
Well, let's be accurate. I said I didn't think it would have legs. The book would have legs in the sense that it will be a bestseller. For months.
Okay,
but
can I ask you?
Wrong on that? I mean, look.
No. I'm just kidding you. Have you read the book?
I have not.
Okay, Stu has, because I haven't had a chance to read it yet either.
I do the work that America doesn't want to do.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And he brought up a really good point this morning.
Yeah, there's an interesting section, Bill. I'd at least like to get your take on this part of it, because the last chapter is actually, I took it as really favorable to Trump. It's about the Russian collusion investigation with Mueller, and Trump comes off as incredibly cooperative with Mueller. The entire White House, very cooperative with him, giving him everything he could possibly want, largely based on the idea that they were totally convinced they've done absolutely nothing wrong and they had nothing to hide. They gave him much more than they even asked for. And this, a lot of the reporting is revolved around this comment that one of Trump's lawyers made to Trump, where he said, you'll be in an orange jumpsuit. But that's that's from that section, and the section's very positive on Trump. And it's not about collusion; it's about the idea that Trump wanted to testify, and Dowd, his lawyer, was like, "Look, it's a perjury trap. They're going to find any way they can to trap you."
Yeah, this isn't even about Russia anymore. They're going to trap you. You can't do it, no matter what. No matter what, you just can't do it, or you'll be in an orange jumpsuit. That's a totally different story than what the press is reporting.
Well, I think Woodward himself is selling the book as, a cautionary tale that if you put an inexperienced, egotistical person in the White House, you're going to have chaos. That's how Woodward himself is selling the book. So I'm glad Stu read it. I didn't know the last chapter was about that. I had Ken Starr in the No Spin News on BillO'Reilly.com this week, and he said flat out that what has been put forth so far, there's no crime at all.
Right.
That's what Starr said.
Right.
Okay. So you get a position where if Woodward himself is going to say, look, I need to sell this book, and this is exactly what he did, to people who don't like Trump, because nobody who likes it's going to read the book, then I'm going to have to go negative and spin it that way, and that's what you're seeing. So while you know how I feel about the media in general, I don't think it's a media play here. I think it's a Woodward play.
Let me change topics here on Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, geez.
This is phenomenal.
It's unbelievable.
Can you recap for anybody who doesn't know?
I can give you an update too.
Okay, give me first. Let's go for the recap, and then you can give the update.
All right. I just want to reemphasize how lucky you are to have me every Friday.
Oh my gosh, Bill! I get up every morning and I fall to my knees and I say thank you.
I
Jesus.
know. I mean, I'm on it and all of that.
Right. I know.
So there's a letter that was given to a Democratic congressperson in California who passed it along to Dianne Feinstein this summer. The letter was written by someone, we have no idea who, that details something that happened to Brett Kavanaugh when he was in high school.
High school.
Yeah. We don't know what.
Right. And we don't know who. And the person.
We don't know who the writer is, and we don't know what is in the letter.
Right. And the person who gave it to Feinstein said, I don't want to press charges. I don't want to
get involved.
Don't want to get involved.
But here's the letter.
Yes.
So Feinstein sits on the letter. Okay, instead of immediately turning it over to the FBI, he does background checks, and that's why the FBI is involved. The FBI does background checks on all Supreme Court justice nominees. Instead of immediately saying, look, I don't know what this is. It could be totally bogus. Here, FBI is a letter. I'm going to wash my hands of it, and I'm not going to say anything about it. No. Feinstein sits on the letter and then allows someone in her staff, I believe, I could be wrong, could be the congressperson's staff member, to leak it, that this is some misconduct. Don't I love that word, misconduct, on a part of Brett Kavanaugh when he was in high school. Okay, so nobody knows whether it's true or not. It's leak. So it gets out. Okay, so now today, just about an hour ago, The Guardian, not a reliable source. It's a far-left newspaper out of Britain.
Before you say anything.
Yes.
Stu, is there anything that happened in high school other than murder or something like that? Something that you did when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a major crime.
Crime.
Right, like if people do really dumb things that are awkward, but if there's a huge crime, obviously that would still hold.
You're raping people. You're killing animals. We need to talk about that. All right. What did they say?
Right, but it's misconduct.
Yes.
So you know what the flag is there. You absolutely know what it is. Everybody who the far left wants to destroy is guilty of misconduct. So Me Too can get involved. I mean, it's the biggest witch hunt in this country's history. But I digress. The Guardian reports, and again, unreliable newspaper, that Brett Kavanaugh and another kid were at a party, a high school party, whereupon they locked some girl in a room and ran away, and the girl got out. That's what they're reporting is in the letter.
Well, they locked her in the room and then they raped her?
No, they ran away.
They locked her in the room and they fondled her?
No, they ran away.
They locked her in the room and got very gender specific with her?
I don't know. We don't know what we're talking about because this is the Guardian. I want to just make sure that everybody.
But even if it is the Guardian, if that's what you got,
that's what they say that it's in the letter. So even the New York Post, which is one of the top drivers of misconduct, even their editorial board said today this is a new low for the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know whether I've seen lower things. I think the Susan Collins stuff is lower.
The FBI came out and said they're not considering this. They're not going to do anything on this and pursue it.
Of course not. I mean, this is, and it's not been front and center on the cable news programs because of the Category 1 now rainstorm in the Carolinas, which they hyped to death. And so they can't wedge this Kavanaugh thing in yet. So that Kavanaugh got a break on that.
Okay, let me ask you this, Bill. I got up this morning and I was listening to the Daily. It's the New York Times, 20-minute update, and they do an interview with somebody, and it's fascinating to listen to. And they had Bob Woodward on a couple of days ago, and they were talking to him, and they started talking about sources and hidden sources and unnamed sources and the importance of those. And Bob was talking about the importance of those in the Nixon era. And I kind of understand. I mean, I think there is a place for unnamed sources, but you better trust the journalist and the organizations above them, which nobody does now. But what I was concerned about is if we are really just going to start to accept unnamed sources, things like she just did, no one's going to survive. Only the person with the loudest megaphone and the biggest number of mob members behind them will be able to survive.
Look, it's reached critical mass, and everybody knows it. And by the way, Beck, did you listen to that podcast before or after you were on your knees thanking that I was on your program today?
During.
Okay,
I'm like, dear baby Jesus, help me with one ear. Listen to the podcast from the New York Times and the other side of my mouth. Thank you for Bill O'Reilly.
Okay. So I think that everybody in America who's fair-minded, which I would put at about 50% of the population, understands now that if you are in politics, if you have any political sway or influence, that you are going to be accused. It's a matter of when, not if. And you're going to be accused most likely of misconduct, okay? Now, it doesn't matter whether there's any truth to it. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to hit you and hurt you. The extent of the harm, I think, is going to decline because now people are going every blanking day. We see another headline about another person, usually a man, in power who's accused of misconduct.
In the long run, this hurts anybody who is actually being hurt by somebody powerful. This whole movement is so misguided and such a witch hunt and empowered for political purposes.
The whole movement is not a witch hunt, but there are elements of it that have been.
I think the movement, the idea.
Wait a minute, Stu. Hold on.
Yeah.
Have you seen any call from the quote unquote movement for due process?
Yeah. I haven't.
I mean, certainly there's been
not.
calls for Harvey Weinstein to be prosecuted for his crimes.
Yeah, but I don't think is that the movement?
Situation.
That's regular people, I think, that might say.
That's law enforcement. Okay, that's a different situation. That's not an anonymous letter handed to a politician
I
who
guess,
then leaks it to the press.
Right. I guess if you're saying that people who might hashtag Me Too because they want this to stop and they think that the bad guys should go to jail or pay a price for it, if that's what you would consider the movement. But I look at the movement like the people who are at the very top of Black Lives Matter. They are not the same people necessarily that are marching in the streets. Their goals and the goals of the people marching in the streets are a lot different. Bill O'Reilly, we're going to come back with you and something that Ruth Bader Ginsburg said this week in an interview that I think is stunning. And I would like you to hear your comments on that coming up in just a second.
Glenn Beck.
Welcome back to the program with Mr. Bill O'Reilly. Bill, let me play a piece of audio from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's being interviewed on stage, and she's asked about the process that we're going through with Kavanaugh. Listen to this.
How would you compare the process that you went through with what's going on today in that process?
The way it was right. The way it is wrong. The atmosphere in 93 was truly bipartisan. The vote on my confirmation was 96-3. Even though I had spent about 10 years of my life litigating cases under the auspices of the ACLU board, ACLU, and I was on the ACLU board and one of their general counsel. But that's the way it should be.
Okay, stop. Bill, here she is saying, you know, the Republicans let me pass, even though I was on the ACLU board and I was litigating things for the ACLU. They would never, the Democrats would go crazy now if any candidate had done anything for even the Heritage Foundation. What does this tell you about what she just said?
Well, you know, I'm of two minds on this. I think the justice is being honest and describing what happened to her and then what's happening now. I think the three people who voted against her in the Senate were probably right. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has done a lot of damage to the country. And she admits that she is not looking to uphold the Constitution, that she believes the Constitution is evolving.
Correct.
So therefore she can vote on whatever her politics are.
So here's the problem, isn't it? That everyone they want somebody on their side. A judge should be selected because the Constitution or the rule of law is the side that they're on. I mean, if we had people that were deciding things on the Constitution, based on the Constitution, the world would be a much different place, and we could advise and consent. But nobody's looking to the Constitution as its basis. They're looking at policies.
But that's never going to happen again in America. So what's the cliche? The genie's left the bottle, the horse is out of the barn.
Then shouldn't we have?
It's not going to happen.
Okay, then shouldn't we have an entirely different conversation then about what we want going forward? Because
but there's no we anymore. It's them versus us. Look at the sanctuary cities policy, okay? So these people get elected and they're sworn to uphold the Constitution, correct? The mayors and the governors and all these people. Well, they raise their hand. I'm going to uphold the Constitution.
All right. Well, let's pick this up. Let's pick this up when we come back. We have just a couple of seconds. When we come back, pick it up there.
Glenn Beck, Mercury. You're listening to the Glenn Beck program.
So we started this conversation with Bill O'Reilly a few minutes ago where, he said that it's not going to happen to where we're going to advise and consent anymore. We're not going to find those people who are just wanting to read the Constitution as it was written. Because we're too highly divided now, and we've politicized all this. Do I have that right, Bill?
Yes, and the best example is sanctuary cities. The mayors and the governors take an oath upon their swearing in. I'll uphold the Constitution. The Constitution says that you follow federal, state, and local law. If you're a citizen, this is your duty as a citizen. And all of a sudden, the governors and mayors say, no, we're not going to follow federal law on immigration. We're going to do what we want.
Correct.
So when you reach a point, and that is an extreme point, people should understand it. Mm-hmm. Been mainstreamed by the media, but it isn't mainstream. Okay, this is basically repudiating the law of the land and embracing anarchy. Once you reach that point where it's acceptable for public servants, whether they're judges or elected officials, to discard the Constitution at will, then you have what you have now, where nothing matters other than my politics.
Okay, so you said we're not going back there. We're not going back to a...
No, it's not going to happen.
So then this is an honest question. Right now, we're in a world where if we're all being honest with each other, the left, the Democrats, they were not voting for Hillary. Most of them were voting against Trump. And most of the people that voted for Trump were voting against Hillary. It's not what they were for, it was what they were against. And we are now entering a time where we are so afraid of my side being silenced that I will vote for someone that will silence them instead. That's not good. Am I wasting my breath and my...
I think there are Americans who are genuinely enthusiastic about liberal causes in the Democratic Party and vice versa, traditional causes in the Republican Party. I think there are. But the fear that we're going to be a socialist country does drive a lot of people to vote for Donald Trump and Republicans. There's no doubt about that.
Right. And it's not an unbased fear when you have candidates who last night in New York, and I'd love to touch base with you on this,
sure,
are socialists. They're declared socialists. And there's a difference between somebody who wants a welfare state and somebody who wants socialism. I mean, even the president, what was it, Denmark, I think, came over to the United States and said, I just want you to know, Bernie Sanders keeps saying we're a socialist country. We're not. We're a capitalist country that has a lot of welfare. That's different. So I get that. But I just want to ask you, again, this one last question. Because I feel like you're saying to me, Glenn, it's not coming back. Well, if it's not coming back, then I'm wasting my time fighting for something that means nothing to anyone. I believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I believe once we are somehow or another reminded that that's what stops all of this nonsense, we'll return. But if we're not returning, then we should have a different discussion. And that is, okay, socialism or what?
Well, there are politicians and there are people in the judiciary, i.e. judges, who will uphold the Constitution back.
I was told by someone whose name you would know in Congress just in the last few weeks, and they said to me, Glenn, I can count the number of people in Washington in power that actually believe in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
I'm not that cynical. I think there are people who do believe it, and those are the people that you have to vote for, and you have to promote what their policies are if you believe the person's sincere. But when you see how Cynthia Nixon, and I'll remind everybody that she played Nancy Reagan in my movie Killing Reagan. Mm-hmm. I know the woman for a little bit. Mm-hmm. How insane her policies are. They're not misguided. They're not wrong. They're insane. They would destroy the state of New York. Okay, 35% of the Democratic Party voted for her because, A, they don't know anything, and B, they like to destroy the state. They want to destroy the country.
May I wait. May I translate and see if this is a fair translation? They don't or let me rephrase it. And if it's not fair, tell me so. When you say something like that, if I'm a Democrat, I'm like, you know what? They don't want to destroy New York. They live in New York. So, rephrasing, they are looking at her policies and they think that these are going to work. And in my opinion, they're completely uninformed because we have a long list of history that shows they don't work. And they don't think that what's happening now is working.
Wrong, Beck.
Okay, why?
The moneyed Democrats voted for Cuomo, 65%. The people with assets, the people who have very expensive apartments in Manhattan and cars and jobs, did not vote for Nixon. But 35% of people who live in New York City don't have anything. They live in rent control. They live in public housing. They barely get by.
Right, and they don't think that this...
They want to blow it all
because
up.
they don't think that this system is working.
Right.
Because no one is telling them and showing them that it is, but they just think it's not working. So it's not that they... I don't think the average Trump voter, when he says, I want to burn the system down, he doesn't mean I don't want to live in America anymore. He means what's happening in Washington, D.C. is not working. Now, I'd like
to... but it's not the same thing. I mean, one is real life and trying to get by and support your family and put food on the table. And the other is theoretical. We don't want a PC nation. We don't want these politicians who lie to us. We want a much more in-your-face situation where we know if Trump says he's going to do something, he'll do it. So it's different. But what I'm trying to get across to you is that the gulf is so huge between Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, Stu, people who have actually worked hard, got an education, tried very hard in the marketplace to succeed, and have actually gotten some system in a system of capitalism.
No, but wait a minute. But in a system of capitalism where, quite honestly, it was stacked against us. I mean, I would be much more. I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me.
No.
I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying we do know what it's like to be in
we had to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't know if I'd use that phrase, but yes.
But there's a cadre, and it comes out of the university system and high schools, and embraced by the media, of victimization. The mob, okay, they tell you can't make it. White privilege, okay, you're never going to succeed, no matter what you do. This is the victimization movement. And that's what you're seeing with Cynthia Nixon and Bernie Sanders. They're trying to whip up this victimization that we'll give stuff to you because you can earn it no matter what you do.
Right.
It's an unfair system.
All right.
So that's the gulf. That's what we're seeing.
You wrote an op-ed today about evil, and I want to talk to you about this because it does revolve around your book a bit. And you're saying that it's people historically don't stand up against evil. And I think there is a chance that people stand up against evil, but we have to be very, very careful on encouraging them to do so because we can push them into the arms of evil really easily. And I think that's happening right now.
There are two aspects of my vantage point on evil, and you were right. It comes off writing Killing the SS. And one of the shocking things about that book is that the concentration camp guards of Nazi Germany were merchants and farmers and bankers.
Correct.
And, they
The
weren't
average person.
Yeah, they were just people before the war who was walking down the street, and all of a sudden they're killing babies and walking away having dinner. All right, you need to read that. You need to absorb it because there's evil in every human being. Every single human being has a capacity for evil, and you have to recognize it, and you have to fight against it. Now, externally, we're living in a country now where we have mass killings in high schools. We have thousands of poor black people being shot in the streets in Chicago. We have clergy molesting children. What do you think that is?
It's evil.
That's evil. All right? And on a much lesser basis, but something visible, we have betrayal of human beings by their spouses. We have the media trying to tear people apart for ideological reasons. We have a justice system that doesn't render justice many times. All of this is evil. And we're not seeing politicians say, you know what? We got to really get the Chicago situation under control. Have you seen anybody do that?
No.
No. And I'm sitting there going, how much evil do you have to see before you mobilize against it? And that's why I wrote this Killing the SS, because Germany before World War II is not different than the United States in 2018.
No, it's really not.
It's the same people doing the same things, try to struggle to make a living in an atmosphere that was increasingly difficult. And what did they do? They surrendered en masse to evil. And you need to know what happened there, because it could certainly happen here and is happening to some extent. This Holocaust that we're seeing in Chicago, this bothers me to the core of my being. We're letting in poor blacks who are defenseless, okay? And we don't do anything about it? Where's the National Guard? Why aren't they on the streets of Chicago stopping the 150 shootings every weekend? Why? They could be there, but they're not there. Who gives a damn about them? No one. That's evil.
Bill O'Reilly, it is always good to talk to you. We'll talk to you again next week. You can find Bill O'Reilly at BillO'Reilly.com, BillO'Reilly.com. His new book comes out the 18th, Killing the Nazis.
The 9th of October.
Oh, the 9th.
Beck.
The 9th of October.
And you're going to be first in line, even though I sent you a free copy.
I read it,
You'll
too.
buy another one.
I read it, too. I don't know about that, but I read it. It's excellent. It's excellent.
Thank you.
The 9th of October. Bill O'Reilly, thank you so much. BillO'Reilly.com.